I have never gone rock climbing, and after playing Cairn, I am absolutely certain I never will. Hanging on for dear life while desperately searching for any foothold is terrifying. Far scarier than most horror games I've played recently. But I do get why people do it. Overcoming your fears and reaching the top is exhilarating, even when the actual peak looms far, far above you, flipping you the middle finger. Hey folks, I'm Ash, and let me show you what wonders and horrors Cairn's demo thrust upon me. There is a lot of climbing games out there, most of which seem specifically designed to drive you insane. Cairn is not one of them. It'll make you scream not because the controls are hot garbage, but rather because climbing a mountain by hand is an insane thing to do. A fact that will hit you like a ton of bricks once you're dangling off one hand above an endless abyss. You climb by alternating between your hands and feet, each of which moves independently, so you can get a surprising amount of control over your body and how it behaves. And sometimes that means discovering poses that look less like a professional climber and more like a eldritch abomination trying to play quap. But a little bit of body horror is a small price to pay for climbing mechanics that simultaneously make you feel like you're going to die at any moment, yet also that you are in full control. Nowhere is this more apparent than when you're moving between distant handholds. That split second when you're clinging to nothing but hope while reaching for a jagged rock that may or may not support you is enough to make your blood run cold. This might be how I learned I'm a masochist, because the constant near-death heart attacks are exactly why Cairn won me over. When you spend 10 minutes crawling your way up a mountain's granite butt crack, the idea of losing it all is both horrifying and intoxicating. When a single slip means you get an express ticket all the way down the mountain, suddenly every movement feels deliberate and very, very meaningful. I have pulled off some frankly superhuman feats of endurance just to save myself. And even though I am sitting safely at home in my very comfy chair, I still caught myself holding my breath alongside my character. That right there is horror game stuff, but hidden inside a climbing sim. And for a game that presents itself as a very calm, perhaps even meditative experience, it is honestly remarkable just how quickly Cairn can push you into fight or flight mode. There is nothing quite like realizing that your grip is fading, that your fingers are peeling off the rock one by one, while the next handhold just stays in the distance, mocking your desperate attempts to cling on. And that right there is the beauty of Cairn's stamina system. You start the day off brimming with energy, but after a full day of climbing, you're going to be an empty husk of a human being, just begging for a little break and a moment to sleep. And managing that slow decline is exactly what makes the climb so tense and memorable. Just picture this. There are two pathways ahead of you. One looks much safer but winds on forever, while the other is a brutal stretch of nearly polished rock that could save you time or just turn you into fertilizer for the very, very lovely meadow that lies below. Do you play it safe and burn supplies, or do you gamble everything? And just to really twist the knife, Cairn gives you a third-person view so you can scout ahead. It is a undeniably useful feature, but honestly, I think I mostly used it to psych myself out. Just staring at some absolutely awful section in the distance and thinking, yep, that's a future me problem right there. Unfortunately, as it turns out, past me is an overconfident fool and should never, ever have been entrusted with making decisions. Unless you're the sort of person who enjoys plummeting down mountains, Cairn gives you pittance and rope so you can at least pretend you're safe. But let's be real, if you slip and fall 5 meters, Being attached to a stretchy rope is not going to save you from some permanent brain damage caused by slamming face first into a rock. But even worse than falling are all of the noises your character makes. They're not heroic yells or desperate screams as you might expect. Instead, Ava just starts to hyperventilate and whimper as her arms slowly give out. The ragged breaths of someone who knows exactly what's coming next. I'm gonna be honest with you, these made me very, very uncomfortable. They are just way too real. So I guess good job, audio team. I hate you. While you're dangling from your rope and trying your hardest not to think about just how high you are, you can also rummage through your pack to check out what kind of snacks you brought for the journey, or maybe even found on the mountain itself. Climbing is hungry work after all, and sometimes the only thing keeping you going is the promise of campfire noodles and maybe a little bit of tea. This is also where I realized that me and Ava have a lot in common. She too absolutely hates answering phone calls, and only really gets inspired to improve her life at 2 in the morning instead of sleeping. So then she just spends the rest of the night awkwardly shuffling around waiting for daylight. Now that right there is a relatable protagonist. But my absolute favorite part of the whole camping experience is the button that lets you violently shake your bag. Now you might be wondering, what does this achieve? And the answer is absolutely nothing, except maybe create the world's very first chocolate and muscle relaxant flavored noodles. Truly the pinnacle of survival innovation. The only thing that comes close is your AI companion Climbot. Despite looking like an unholy union between a mailbox and a spider, he is both adorable and surprisingly useful. And his greatest feature is that he enables your laziness. He'll gather up all of your pittance after you're done climbing, repair your gear, and even recycle your trash. Because sure, we might leave our mangled corpse at the very top of a mountain, but littering, now that is a step too far. And speaking of being on top of the mountain, that's where Cairn really shines. While you're climbing, you're so focused on the next handhold and the dangers around you that you barely even notice just how far you've actually gone. So when I finally reached the peak of Cairn's demo, I was hit with a mixture of surprise and relief. I had actually made it. That feeling did not last very long, however, because as soon as I looked up, I saw my actual goal. The impossibly tall mountain looming very threateningly overhead. Compared to that, the little hillock I had just spent 40 minutes climbing felt like a joke. I hadn't actually conquered anything, I had just taken my first steps. And yet, I didn't feel discouraged. If anything, I was itching to keep going. Cairn really has a way of wrapping its danger in a nice and comfy layer of serenity. The muted colors, the mist curling around the cliffs, the sound of wind rushing past you. It all feels so cozy despite your life constantly hanging in the balance. And it is exactly that kind of mixture of beauty and horror that really makes me want to climb higher. So, would I recommend trying out Cairn? Unsurprisingly, yes, or at the very least the demo. It is equal parts horrifying and peaceful, stressful and meditative, and it is exactly that juxtaposition that makes it so memorable. It's not going to be for everyone, that is immediately clear, but if you want a game that makes your palms sweaty anytime you go anywhere, Cairn is the place to be. And the mountainside is most definitely not the place to be, because if there is one thing I've learned throughout my journey, it is that gravity has one hell of a KD ratio, and I am not volunteering to pad its stats any further. Thank you for watching, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed, and I do hope I see you again soon. Bye bye!